Snow fell gently outside the Anderson family mansion as I stood in the fancy entryway, holding the homemade apple pie. My mother-in-law, Victoria Anderson, looked at it like it was something disgusting. Her perfectly polished nails tapped against her expensive dress. "Really, Emma? Store-bought would have been better," she said, not even trying to hide her disapproval. Behind her, my husband James shifted uncomfortably, staring at his expensive shoes. I had spent hours baking that pie using my grandmother's special recipe, but as always, nothing I did was ever good enough for Victoria, who thought homemade things were cheap and common. She walked around me, eyeing my dress like a shark smelling blood. "I thought we talked about the dress code for Christmas Eve dinner," she said. My simple green dress had taken me a month to save for. But Victoria would never understand budgeting. Her husband's massive fortune covered all her wants. "I think Emma looks nice," my sister-in-law, Rachel, said softly, but she quickly went quiet under her mother's glare. "Nice isn't what we do here," Victoria snapped. "The Rockefellers in the governor's family will be here tonight. We have standards." I caught my reflection in one of the mansion's gold-framed mirrors. At 32, I looked younger than Victoria's heavily Botoxed 60. But that didn't matter when I was wearing last season's dress from a department store. "Where's your jewelry?" Victoria asked. "Surely James has bought you something suitable by now." She narrowed her eyes at my simple pearl necklace, the last gift my mother gave me before she passed. "Mom," James finally spoke up, still not meeting my highs. "Maybe we should." "Maybe we should what?" Victoria cut him off. "Stop pretending your wife fits in." She sighed dramatically. "James, when you said you were marrying a kindergarten teacher, we assumed it was a phase. 5 years. 5 years of these insults. 5 years of James promising to stand up to his mother, only to back down the moment she pushed him." "Victoria," I said, my voice steady despite the hurt, "I understand you have certain expectations." She let out a sharp laugh. "Expectations? My dear, I expected my son to marry someone who belongs in our world. Instead, she waved a hand dismissively at me. He brought home someone who thinks a homemade pie is acceptable for a 5-star dinner. Someone who wears off the rack when every other guest will be in Channel and Dior." The doorbell rang. Through the frosted glass, I saw guests arriving. "Mom's right," James mumbled, still staring at his shoes. Maybe it would be better if he didn't stay for dinner. The betrayal shouldn't have hurt. It wasn't the first time he chose his mother over me. But something about this moment on Christmas Eve, with snow falling outside and my grandmother's warm pie in my hands, broke something inside me. "Better for whom, James?" "Emma, don't make a scene," Victoria hissed. "The Rockefellers are here. Just go home. We'll discuss this after the holidays." I looked at James, still avoiding my eyes. At Victoria, already putting on her perfect hostess smile. Then at the pie in my hands, made with love for people who had never given me any in return. "You know what? You're right." I set the pie down on the marble table. "I don't belong here. I never did." Victoria let out a sigh of relief. Finally some sense. "James, show her out the back door. We wouldn't want the guests to." "Oh no," I interrupted, my voice clear and strong. "I'll use the front door, just like all your other guests." Victoria's face went pale. "You wouldn't dare." But I was already walking toward the door, head held high. I pulled it open, just as Harrison Rockefeller and his wife were about to ring the bell again. "Emma," Harrison's face lit up with genuine warmth. And I kept walking, leaving the Anderson mansion behind. Emma Harrison smiled warmly when he saw me. "Nothing serious, I hope." The kids would be heartbroken if anything happened to their favorite teacher. "Nothing I can't handle," I assured him, feeling satisfied as I saw Victoria's confused expression. "Enjoy your evening and tell Emily she was a wonderful angel in the play." I stepped out into the snow, leaving Victoria to explain my sudden exit to the governor's wife, who was arriving with her daughter, another one of my students. What Victoria and the rest of the Anderson family didn't know was that my teaching job wasn't my only source of income. My mother's inheritance had grown into a small fortune thanks to careful investments and the educational software company I had built in my free time. It was now worth millions. Even more ironic, the Anderson family mansion, the one Victoria loved bragging about, was about to go up for auction. Thomas had made some bad investments, and I knew all about them because I secretly sat on the board of the bank that held their mortgage. I smiled, remembering how Victoria had to tell her friends they were losing their mansion. "Oh, I'm sure," I said. "Everything is set up as you requested," Michael confirmed. "The bid will be made through a shell corporation, so no one will trace it back to you. The sale terms are final." Another text from James popped up. "Please talk to me. Mom's a wreck. Dad isn't sleeping. We can work this out." I didn't reply. In the past 2 months, James had gone from angry to begging. Even Victoria had tried visiting my school, only to be turned away by security. Apparently, being in Anderson didn't give her special access to one of the city's top private schools. "Did you know?" I mused to Michael. "Victoria once said teaching was just a hobby for women who couldn't do better. Funny, since half her friends send their kids to my school." The auction was simple. I wasn't even there. I spent the day teaching my students about butterflies. But I heard later that Victoria showed up, expecting a wealthy friend to save their home. Instead, an anonymous company outbid everyone, offering cash with one condition: the Andersons had to leave within a month. A week later, James found me outside my classroom. He looked awful, his expensive suit wrinkled, hair a mess. "Emma, please. Mom's having a breakdown. This house has been in our family for generations." I raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Because I have the property records right here." I pulled out a folder. "Your parents bought it 5 years ago from the Williams family. Just another thing for Victoria to show off." James paled. Even if so-called family legacy was a lie. "They tried to negotiate," he said desperately. "Dad offered more than the winning bid." "With what money?" I cut him off. "The money he lost on bad investments, or the money your mother spent trying to keep up appearances?" Moving day was bright and clear. I arrived to oversee the transfer of ownership. Victoria stood outside, barking orders at the movers, while Thomas sat inside, drinking at 10 a.m. "Be careful with that," she snapped as they carried out her prized couch. "It's worth more than you make in a year." "Actually," I said, checking my clipboard, "according to the auction records, most of your furniture was rented. That couch is going back to Hampton Lux Rentals." Victoria spun around. "What are you doing here?" "I'm representing the new owners," I said with a pleasant smile. "I'm here for the final walkthrough before you hand over the keys." "You," she sputtered. "You have no right." "She has every right." Rachel, James's sister, appeared, looking exhausted. "Emma's the new owner, isn't she?" The silence was deafening. Even the movers stopped. Victoria whispered, "What?" Rachel laughed bitterly. "Oh, come on, Mother. The anonymous buyer? The 1-month deadline? The detailed knowledge of which furniture is actually yours? Who else would it be?" Emma Harrison smiled warmly. "Nothing serious, I hope. The kids would be heartbroken if anything happened to their favorite teacher." "Nothing I can't handle," I reassured her, enjoying the confused look on Victoria's face. "Have a great evening, and tell Emily she was an absolute angel." I stepped outside into the snow, leaving Victoria to explain my absence to the governor's wife, who was arriving with her daughter, one of my students. What Victoria didn't know, what no one knew, was that my small kindergarten teacher's salary wasn't my only source of income. The money my mother left me had grown into a fortune thanks to careful investments. The educational software company I built in my free time was now worth millions. And the Anderson family mansion, the one Victoria loved to show off, was about to be auctioned because of bad financial decisions Thomas had made. I knew all about those bad investments because I sat on the board of the bank that held their mortgage. Of course, no one knew that. As I drove home through the snowy streets, my phone buzzed with messages from James. "Mom didn't mean it. Come back. We can talk tomorrow." I ignored it and called my financial advisor instead. "John, remember that property we talked about? I'm ready to make a move on it." Victoria was right about one thing. I didn't belong in their world. I was about to own it. 2 months after that disastrous Christmas Eve, I sat in my lawyer's office, reviewing the final paperwork. Thomas Anderson's finances had collapsed completely, and with them, the family's perfect image. "The auction is tomorrow," my lawyer, Michael, confirmed. "Are you sure you want to do this? It's priced much higher than market value." I smiled, thinking of Victoria's reaction when she had to explain to her high society friends that they had lost the mansion. "Oh, I'm sure. Everything is set up as I requested." "Yes." Michael nodded. "The bid will be placed through a shell company so no one will know it's you, and the purchase terms are non-negotiable." My phone buzzed again. Another text from James. Please talk to me. Mom's a mess. Dad isn't sleeping. We can fix this. I added it to my collection of ignored messages. Since Christmas Eve, James had gone from angry to pleading. And now, desperate. Even Victoria had tried to visit my classroom, only to be turned away by security. Just because she was in Anderson didn't mean she had automatic access to the exclusive school where I worked. You know, I told Michael, Victoria once said teaching was a hobby for women who couldn't do better. She never realized half of her social circle sends their kids to my school. The auction itself was uneventful. I wasn't even there. My representative handled everything while I taught my class about butterflies. But I heard later that Victoria had attended, hoping one of her rich friends would save their home. Instead, a mysterious company outbid everyone with an all-cash offer and one strict condition. The Andersons had to leave in a month. A week later, James found me outside my classroom. He looked terrible. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and his hair was a mess. Please, he begged. Mom is falling apart. This house has been in our family for generations. Really? I raised an eyebrow and pulled out a folder. Because I have the property records right here. Your parents bought it 5 years ago from the Williams family. His face fell. Even their family history was a lie. The new owners, he tried again. They won't negotiate. Dad offered more than their bid. With what money? I interrupted. The money he lost on bad investments, or the money your mother spent trying to keep up appearances? Moving day arrived. Victoria barked orders at the movers, clinging to her last bit of control. Thomas sat in his study, already drinking, at 10 a.m. Careful with that. Victoria snapped as movers carried out her favorite couch. It's worth more than you make in a year. Actually, I said, checking my clipboard, most of this furniture was rented. That couch goes back to Hampton Lux Rentals. Victoria spun around. What are you doing here? I'm representing the new owners, I said with a pleasant smile. We need to do a final walkthrough before you hand over the keys. You, she hissed. You have no right. She has every right. James's sister, Rachel, cut in. She looked exhausted. Emma's the new owner, isn't she? The room went silent. Even the movers stopped. What? Victoria whispered. Rachel laughed bitterly. Oh, come on, Mother. The anonymous buyer, the 1-month deadline, the detailed knowledge of which furniture was actually yours. Who else would it be? I didn't answer. I just checked another box on my list. Impossible. Victoria shook her head. She's a kindergarten teacher. She has no money. Actually, Rachel continued, I did some research after Christmas. Emma's educational software company, it's worth millions. That little classroom you mocked, it's where half of the city's wealthiest send their kids. And that homemade pie you rejected, she learned to make it from her grandmother, Evelyn Montgomery. Victoria went pale. The Montgomery family was old money, the kind that never had to show off. Your father, Rachel said to me, he was Samuel Montgomery's son, wasn't he? The tech pioneer. I finally looked up. Yes, the same Samuel Montgomery who founded the bank that held your mortgage. Funny how life works, isn't it? Victoria sank onto a bare stare. All this time, I agreed. You were so busy looking down on me, you never really looked at all. Oh, and that charity board you desperately wanted to join. I've been on it for 3 years. They're the ones who recommended my school to the Rockefellers. James appeared in the doorway, his face ashen. You bought our house. Not exactly. I smiled. I bought my house. You were just the previous tenants. Victoria found her voice. You did this for revenge, didn't you? No, I said simply. I did this because it was a smart investment. The fact that you finally understand how you made me feel for 5 years, that's just a bonus. I walked through the house, now stripped of its rented furniture and fake prestige. My heels echoed on the marble floors that now belonged to me. Oh, I added, turning back. Don't worry about forwarding addresses. Any important paperwork will go through your lawyers. Paperwork? Thomas spoke for the first time. Yes, I said, starting with the divorce papers. James staggered. Divorce? Did you really think I'd stay after Christmas, after 5 years of watching you choose their approval over our marriage? Consider this my parting gift, a lesson in judging people by their appearance. Victoria tried one last time. The governor's wife, the Rockefellers. They'll never accept you after this. I laughed. You mean like they didn't accept me at Emily Rockefeller's birthday party last week? Or at the governor's fundraiser? I shook my head. Face it, Victoria. You're the one who doesn't fit in anymore. I held out my hand. The keys, please. That night, after the Andersons had left, Victoria to her sister's guest house, Thomas to a small condo, and James to wherever failed husbands go. I stood in the empty foyer, the same foyer where they had once tried to make me feel small. My phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. For what it's worth, you were always too good for this family. I smiled, thinking about what came next. The mansion would soon be a children's hospital wing, named after my mother. A place where every child, no matter their background, would be welcomed. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just buying someone's house. It's turning their symbol of exclusion into a place of kindness.